In 1933, at the height of the Great Depression, Franklin Delano Roosevelt stood before a nation paralyzed by fear. Banks had collapsed. Families had lost everything. People no longer believed in the system itself. And yet, Roosevelt began his inaugural address with words that have echoed for generations. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Unquote. He understood something profound. Fear shapes societies. Fear can magnify crisis, corrode trust, and lead to irrational, destructive choices. The Tanakh insists 39 times, Al tira, don't be afraid. When God calls Abraham in a vision, Al tira Avram, Anochi magen lach. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. When the Israelites stand trapped between Pharaoh's army and the sea, Al tirau. Ityatzvu ur'u et Yeshuat Hashem. Do not be afraid, stand firm and witness the salvation of God. When Joshua takes leadership after Moses' death, Chazak ve'ematz, al tira ve'al teichat. Be strong and resolute. Do not be afraid or dismayed. And famously, we echo the words of the psalmist, Gam ki elech begeit salmavet, lo irara ki ata imadi. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. In Deuteronomy, we find a striking command. Mi aish hayare verach halevav yelech veyashov leveito. Who is the man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house. The Torah exempts the fearful from battle. But what does this mean? After all, every healthy human being is afraid of war. If you are not afraid of war, something is odd, out of place. We are supposed to fear war. So why does the Torah excuse those afraid from war? In my reading, the Torah is excusing not those who simply feel fear, but those who are overwhelmed by their fear and therefore become their fear. Everything they do and don't do from that moment on is motivated by fear. No other moral, ethical, or rational value is taken into consideration anymore, because they don't only fear, they are transformed into fear. And there is the crucial distinction. Animals react to fear in three ways. They run away, they freeze, or they attack. These are primitive, instinctive responses. Every time we are confronted with fear, we also have these three reactions available. But as rational human beings, we have a fourth option. We can, and I would say we must, stop and reflect on our fear. We can ask, how do I channel this in a positive, ethical, constructive way? We don't have to be enslaved by our fear. We can use it as a tool of learning and growth to enhance not only our own lives as individuals, but society as a whole. Hannah Arendt, one of the great political thinkers of the 20th century, saw fear not only as a personal feeling, but as a system. In The Origins of Totalitarianism, she wrote how Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia thrived on cultivating fear everywhere. Terror wasn't limited to political opponents. It infected entire societies, turning everyone into a potential suspect. Fear eroded trust between neighbors and isolated individuals, making them easier to control. For Arendt, fear is not just an emotion. It can be weaponized into a political system. But Arendt also knew that fear and freedom are opposites. In her essay, What is Freedom?, she argued that courage, the ability to act in public, to speak, to take risks together, is the antidote of fear. Fear silences, isolates, paralyzes. Courage restores voice, builds community, creates change. In this, Arendt echoes our own rabbinic wisdom. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov said famously, "Kol haolam kulo gesher tsar meod ve'ikar lo lefached klal." The whole world is a very narrow bridge, and the essential thing is not to be overcome by fear. To walk across the bridge of history takes courage. To stop walking is to surrender to fear. Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Auschwitz, later wrote that everything can be taken for a person except, quote, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, unquote. Frankl admitted he was afraid every single day in Auschwitz. Fear was inescapable. But he also saw that those who survived spiritually were not those without fear, but those who refused to let fear strip them of their dignity or compassion. In the darkest place on earth. He discovered the truth of the Torah's command, Al Tira. Al Tira is not the denial of fear. It is the refusal to let fear write the script of your life. Dear friends, anti-Semitism is real. It wounds us deeply. But Al Tira means do not let fear of anti-Semitism turn us into people who harbor prejudice against others. The Jewish answer to anti-Semitism is not racism. It is not xenophobia. It is not Islamophobia, homophobia, or any other form of hatred. The Jewish answer is the opposite: to strengthen the bonds of a pluralistic, democratic, and compassionate society. Only in a world where no group is persecuted will Jews be safe as well. In the war between Hamas and Israel, Hamas shows utter disregard for human life. Israeli and Palestinian alike. But Al Tira means do not let their disregard become ours. The death of any civilian is a tragedy. To be human is to mourn for every innocent life lost. Our fear must never blind us to the suffering of others. Fear can make us reactive, defensive, destructive. But the Torah calls us to something higher. To live Al Tira is to acknowledge fear and then to choose intentionally how we act. The Rambam, Maimonides, in his Mishneh Torah writes that the true courage lies not in rashness, but in the ability to act wisely even when afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action guided by wisdom and faith in spite of fear. This is why the shofar that we together are going to hear in a moment. This is why the shofar is so powerful on Rosh Hashana. Its sound is not smooth or easy. It is broken, staccato, filled with trembling. The Shvarim and Truah are cries of fear, of pain, of uncertainty. But they are also cries that awaken us, that remind us we are alive, that summon us to hope. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs once wrote that the shofar is, quote, the sound of a people refusing to be defeated by fear, giving voice instead to the tears of the heart and the possibility of renewal, unquote. The Talmud even connects the sound of the shofar to a mother's cry. It tells us that the truah, the broken blast, was modeled after the anguished sobbing of the mother of Sisra, a Canaanite general who was Israel's enemy. Think about that. Our tradition took the cry of a non-Jewish mother weeping for her son, a military adversary of Israel, and wove it into the very heart of our liturgy. What a radical teaching! The cry of a mother for her child is not erased, even when that child stood on the opposite side of the battlefield. I would like to interpret this as a profound moral call. Never to stop listening to the cry of a mother for her child. No matter who she is or where she comes from. Even when she belongs to the so-called other side. Even when politics, war, ideology might tell us to turn away, our shofar incorporates her cry to remind us that empathy is not optional, that our humanity demands we remain attentive to suffering, even when it comes from beyond our own people. In doing so, the shofar insists that our fear must never deafen us to compassion. The truah is the staccato sound of the shofar, a broken sound, a representation of our brokenness. And we must admit, we are broken. Our vulnerability, our fear is here. But when several shofarot are blown together, something remarkable happens. The many fractured truot merge into a single tkiah, a continuous, steady sound. Symbolically, when we can say that community has the power to transform our individual fears into collective moral strength. Alone, each of us sounds like a broken cry. Together, we create a steady, unifying call. This is the gift of community, that the broken truah of our individual fears can become the tekiah of our shared courage. A unison of integral moral resolve. Dear friends of Hewlett-East Rockaway Jewish Center, as we begin the year 5786, let us recognize fear will always be part of life. The question is not whether we will feel fear, but what fear will make of us. Fear can shrink us. Fear can harden us. Fear can make us mirror the very aggression we suffer. Or fear can sharpen us. Fear can make us intentional, ethical, compassionate. Fear can remind us of our shared humanity. Al-tira does not mean don't be afraid. It means don't let fear be the author of your story. On this Rosh Hashana, as the shofar calls us to awaken, may we hear in its cry a reminder that even in the face of fear, we can choose life. We must choose life. May we never let fear turn against others. May we never let fear paralyze us. May we never let fear strip us of our humanity. Instead, may we transform fear into courage, into solidarity, into wisdom, and into hope. Altira, don't be afraid. May 5786 be a year of turning fear into moral intention and anxiety into ethical resolve. Shana Tova.